This is an ABC News special report.
Good afternoon to all of you. I'm Diane Sawyer here at ABC News World Headquarters in New York with George Stephanopoulos because there is big breaking news from the White House. This is an historic political and cultural moment in this country, and the issue, gay marriage.
That's right. The White House facing a lot of questions this week in the wake of Vice President Biden saying he's comfortable with gay marriage. On Sunday, North Carolina becoming the 30th state yesterday to ban gay marriage. The president made the news in an interview with our friend and my GMA co-anchor, Robin Roberts, down at the White House. So let's go right there. Robin.
George and Diane, based upon what you just said, yes, the vote last night in North Carolina, what Vice President Biden said earlier in the week, and what his press secretary, Jay Carney, said yesterday, and that the president would speak for himself on his position. So I asked the president, does he still oppose same-sex marriage?
I have to tell you, as I said, I've been going through an evolution on this issue. I've always been adamant that gay and lesbian Americans should be treated fairly and equally. And that's why, in addition to everything we've done in this administration, rolling back Don't Ask, Don't Tell, so that outstanding Americans can serve our country, whether it's no longer defending the Defense Against Marriage Act, which tried to federalize what has historically been state law. I've stood on the side of broader equality for the LGBT community. And I had hesitated on gay marriage, in part because I thought civil unions would be sufficient, that was something that would give people hospital visitation rights and other elements that we take for granted. And I was sensitive to the fact that for a lot of people, the word marriage was something that evokes very powerful traditions, religious beliefs, and so forth. But I have to tell you that over the course of several years, as I talk to friends and family and neighbors, when I think about members of my own staff who are in incredibly committed monogamous relationships, same-sex relationships, who are raising kids together, when I think about those soldiers or airmen or Marines or sailors who are out there fighting on my behalf and yet feel constrained, even now that Don't Ask, Don't Tell is gone, because they're not able to commit themselves in a marriage. At a certain point, I've just concluded that for me personally, it is important for me to go ahead and affirm that I think same-sex couples should be able to get married.
So once again, the president supports same-sex marriage, and Diane and George, he was very comfortable in discussing this. We had other topics that we discussed, but the majority of the interview was on same-sex marriage, and he had a lot more to say about that. It was very important for him to say it himself and not have others speak on his behalf.
And Robin, did he tell you anything about why he decided to do it today? Did Vice President Biden force his hand, or was that planned?
I did ask him that, about what the vice president said, and also his education secretary, Arne Duncan, also just recently in support of same-sex marriage. The president laughed, and he said that this was a discussion that they had been having and that they were planning on having perhaps before the election, so perhaps the vice president did jump the gun just a little bit. But I asked him if he was angry at all with his administrators, top people in his administration being so vocal, and he said absolutely not. He was not upset at all with them.
And Diane, there had been a lot of debate inside the Obama campaign for a long time about how to do this and when to do this, and there were many who were thinking it shouldn't come out before the election, but in many ways the president also forced into a bit of a corner. You had those comments by the vice president, you had these votes. You know the president was going to be getting questions on this straight through to the election, and probably the big key, already his convention chairman, the Democratic leader in the House, Nancy Pelosi, a majority of Democrats were trying to put into the platform at the Democratic convention support for gay marriage. So the president also facing a big fight at his convention that he did not want to have.
Right, but we should be pointing out that there are 30 states in this country that have laws now opposing same-sex marriage. And of course, his presumed opponent in the campaign, Governor Mitt Romney, opposes it. And I understand our Jake Tapper is standing by right there at the White House. What is the Romney camp saying?
Well, Mitt Romney was asked about this while campaigning today. His response was that he supports legal rights for some legal rights for same-sex couples, such as hospital visitation rights, but that he opposes same-sex marriage. He would not go into detail when reporters pressed him on this. He is in favor of a federal constitutional amendment against same-sex marriage. That's one of the reasons President Obama told Robin Roberts about why he was talking about this, is because his opponent believed in making this a federal issue, and he said that the president said that he did not. He thought this was a state-by-state issue. And the president has also, as he pointed out in that interview, talked about the many steps he's taken that the gay and lesbian community have supported in terms of doing away with Don't Ask, Don't Tell and other steps that Mitt Romney opposed at the time. So there will be very stark differences on this issue, although, of course, everyone, both campaigns, Obama and Romney, expect the big issue in this election will not be same-sex marriage. It will be the economy.
And neither side wants this to be the big issue in the election. But, you know, whether this is from conviction, political calculation, some mix, this is a big move by the president. He has been on the record for years against same-sex marriage. Now he becomes the first president to say he believes that men and men should have the right to marry, women and women should have the right to marry. That is, this day will always be marked by that decision.
And Robin, I want to bring you back in because he talked about Sasha and Malia at one point.
He did. He talked about being around the dinner table with Mrs. Obama, and that they would talk about some of their friends and that their parents were same sex. And he feels it's generational. For his children, it was no big deal. And so he felt that that was perhaps a conversation that was taking place across the country. But yes, he did talk about Malia and Sasha. I asked him also about his conversations with Mrs. Obama, and he said absolutely. That is something that they have discussed over the years, and she is fully supportive as well. So again, we'll let the president speak for himself tonight. I'll do the plug here. Tonight on World News and tomorrow on Good Morning America.
Well done. You should be in the TV business. Very well done.
I don't have a shot.
And as Robin points out, polling shows if you're under the age of 40, 61% of people under the age of 40 in this country do approve same-sex marriage.
And just last year, for the first time, a majority of Americans said they approve same-sex marriage, even though you have those 30 states who voted to ban it.
Well,
it was an historic moment. President Obama saying in our exclusive interview that he is now in favor of same-sex marriage. He endorsed civil unions, but opposed gay marriage during the 2008 campaign. And for the past year and a half, he has indicated that his feelings might have changed, especially in light of recent comments from top people in his administration. So yesterday at the White House, I directly asked the president this question. Mr. President, are you still opposed to same-sex marriage?
I've been going through an evolution on this issue. And I had hesitated on gay marriage, in part because I thought civil unions would be sufficient. But I have to tell you that over the course of several years, as I talk to friends and family and neighbors, when I think about members of my own staff who are in incredibly committed monogamous relationships, same-sex relationships, who are raising kids together. At a certain point, I've just concluded that for me personally, it is important for me to go ahead and affirm that I think same-sex couples should be able to get married. And I continue to believe that this is an issue that is going to be worked out at the local level because historically this has not been a federal issue.
But Mr. President, it's not being worked out on the state level. We saw that Tuesday in North Carolina, the 30th state to in essence ban gay marriage.
What I'm saying is that different states are coming to different conclusions. I think it's important to recognize that folks who feel very strongly that marriage should be defined narrowly as between a man and a woman. Many of them are not coming at it from a mean-spirited perspective. A bunch of them are friends of mine, pastors and people who I deeply respect.
Especially in the black community.
Absolutely.
It is very
right.
a difficult conversation to have.
Absolutely. But I think it's important for me to say to them that as much as I respect them, as much as I understand where they're coming from, when I meet gay and lesbian couples, for me, I think it just has tipped the scales in that direction.
An historic and controversial announcement, he says, is happening now, in part because of Vice President Biden's revelation this weekend that he was absolutely comfortable with same-sex marriage. Did he jump the gun a little bit here?
I had already made a decision that we were going to probably take this position before the election and before the convention. He probably got out a little bit over his skis, but out of generosity of spirit.
So you're not upset with anybody?
Would I've preferred to have done this in my own way, in my own terms, without, I think, there being a lot of notice to everybody? Sure, but all's well that ends well.
The president says one inspiration for his change of heart was close to home.
You know, Malia and Sasha, they've got friends whose parents are same-sex couples. It wouldn't dawn on them that somehow their friends' parents would be treated differently. And frankly, that's the kind of thing that prompts a change of perspective. You know, not wanting to somehow explain to your child why somebody should be treated differently when it comes to the eyes of the law.
But what about critics charging this move is just about politics, looking for an edge in a tight race against Mitt Romney? You and others in your administration have been critical of him changing positions, feeling that he's doing it for political gain. You realize there are going to be some people that are going to be saying the same of you about this. Do you see where some people might consider that the same thing?
I think it'd be hard to argue that somehow this is something that I'd be doing for political advantage, because frankly, the politics, it's not clear how they cut. But I'm not going to be spending most of my time talking about this because frankly, my job as president right now, my biggest priority is to make sure that we're growing the economy, that we're putting people back to work.
And on that note, a new turf battle in the campaign. The president taking aim at Romney over Detroit's resurgence. Mitt Romney just recently said that he deserves the credit for the revival of the U.S. auto industry. How do you respond to that?
Well, I think this is one of his etch-a-sketch moments. I don't think anybody takes that seriously. People remember his position, which was, let's let Detroit go bankrupt. So had we followed his advice at that time, GM and Chrysler would have gone under and we would have lost probably 1 million jobs throughout the Midwest. Mother's
Day. Sasha, Malia, do you have plans for Mrs. Obama?
I'm sure some aspect of it will be handmade. Malia and Sasha, it's sort of like an arms race in terms of who can make the bigger, more creative card.
You're not going to leave Mrs. Obama on Air Force One again on Mother's Day or anything like that?
Did you see that?
Yeah, I kind of did.
Oh, it was embarrassing.
Where's he going?
But you went back and got her.
I did. I thought she was behind me.
Right.
See, she gave me so much grief.
The final question, since you talk about that. Did you discuss this with Mrs. Obama, the same-sex marriage issue?
She feels the same way that I do. We were both practicing Christians, and obviously this position may be considered to put us at odds with the views of others. But when we think about our faith, the thing at root that we think about is not only Christ sacrificing himself on our behalf, but it's also the golden rule. I figure the more consistent I can be in being true to those precepts, the better I'll be as a dad and a husband, and hopefully the better I'll be as a president.
Mr. President, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And George, you know full well what it's like to get a call from the White House. We got a call on Tuesday saying the president wanted to talk. No guidelines, no real indication of what he wanted to discuss. We knew that this issue was very much in the news cycle because of things that had been said recently, but had no idea he would go as far as he did.
But I have to say, watching this, and I've asked the president about gay marriage several times in the last couple of years, he was always pretty uncomfortable given that answer about the evolution. He seemed at peace with the answer yesterday.
He was very comfortable in talking about it. And again, we talked about other issues. We talked about terrorism, Mitt Romney, politics. It was a full-range interview. But of course, this is the moment, and this is the topic that really got everybody's attention.
And it is right in the middle of a presidential campaign, which drew out Mitt Romney right away as well. He responded a couple of hours after the president.
This is a very tender and sensitive topic, as are many social issues. But I have the same view that I've had since running for office. But my view is that marriage itself is a relationship between a man and a woman, and that's my own preference. I know other people have differing views.
So a clear distinction on this issue. Let's bring in ABC's Jake Tapper to talk about that. And Jake, the Romney campaign not eager to go out and talk about this all the time either. I think because both campaigns seem to agree with what the president said in his interview with Robin, that the politics of this are very hard to read.
They're difficult to discern. And let's take a step back. 12 years ago, Howard Dean was lambasted. He was the governor of Vermont at the time, lambasted for signing a civil unions law in Vermont, which he did without any cameras because he didn't want it to be used against him. There has been such a sea change on this issue. It's one of the reasons why I think the public is not regarding this as a flip-flop by the president, because we're almost in the midst of a national flip-flop with the evolution, as the president puts it, or a change in direction, people supporting same-sex marriage.
But we also heard the president concede that Joe Biden might have got out ahead of his skis on that one. They might be taking away the skis at the White House right now.
That was a tough moment. They are irritated. Don't let anyone fool you on that. And gay rights groups are giving Joe Biden credit for the president's quote-unquote evolution as if he were Charles Darwin. But the fact of the matter is the vice president, this is a gaffe by him.